Lakehouse open, and if I open the tables in the Lakehouse and let me refresh, so the table should come at any time soon, and that depends on the data flow. So once it's basically refreshed, the data will be there at that moment. And if you have any more specific questions, feel free to use the AI chat to get more descriptive answers and response. Should be over at anytime soon. And just to quickly mention for those of you who were late to the party, how to use the AI chat. So you head over to Teams section and you'll create a pull request here. And in your request, you have to mention the word AI chat and ask your, for example, ask your question. For example, how does long leg work in Fabric? So how does it work behind the scenes? And I'll basically post this question. All right, let's wait until it responds. All right, long leg is a unified location, as you can see. And this gives you more detailed explanation with references to documentation. Now, let me share this again in the chat. Okay, so here's the chat. I want to share this with you guys. Great. Now let's go back to our demo. So once it's refreshed, you can see that it's refreshed. You can set a refresh. You can set a refresh policy for your data flow, and it will refresh the data and bring in all the fresh data, all the new data with every time you set the refresh wall. For example, in this case, you can set it to daily refresh, monthly refresh, or a minute refresh, depending on your requirements. Now let's go back to our Lakehouse and see if the table is there. Okay. All right, let me check the data flow and see if the right data lakehouse was chosen for a destination. Okay. Let me refresh the tables again. All right. Okay, let's see what's not working in data flow. Let me check my other lakehouse. I guess I loaded that to a different lakehouse. Let's see. This one. All right, you can see that it came here. Mission assigned demo. All right, we'll continue with this demo lakehouse then. So you can see the data, and it's a single table that has all the data inside it, the data that we've transformed with all the new column names, as you can see. And this data is at this point ready to build a report and analyze. So to build a report, we create a new semantic model. And let's give it a name. For example, demo SM, or let's say mission assigned. Mission assigned a lake house, semantic model. Now, when you have a lot of tables, you can choose those tables. For example, when you have 3 or 4 connected tables, you can choose 3 or 4 connected tables and build an entire model or build a dimensional model. But in this demo, we'll have a single data set and we'll be working with a single data set to create our model. So I'm going to confirm that choice. All right, guys, so it's loaded at this point. Let's head over to our semantic model. So you can see that the semantic model is empty. It has only one table. Now it can be used to create a new report. So let's close this model and head over to our workspace. And to create a new report, you can switch over to a new persona, or you can create reports within the same persona here, within the data engineering persona. So every persona is integrated, giving you the flexibility to work within the personas, because the workspace is shared among personas. Now let's go to a report and choose the semantic model that we created for a report, and let's auto create a report. Semantic model in Fabric is a semantic model in Power BI. If you're a Power BI service user or Power BI developer, they're really similar. They're exactly the same thing. All right, you can see that it generated me some basic reports, and it generated this report without any technical requirements, without any coding, and automatically it's a quick summary for me to understand the data and to understand the metadata about my data. Now I can actually make it more analyzed, more descriptive, right? And let's go to edit view and click continue. And we can edit our own visualizations, create our own visualizations within Fabric. Now in the real life, the way I would do is basically create a report on my desktop, manage the connection modes, use a direct leg or direct mode or import mode for a connection, and then see if the size actually fits the service requirements, upload that to a service, set up a data flow, and change the report accordingly, and then refresh, and only then deliver it to users. But now the entire process is more streamlined, easier to perform, and Fabric allows this really quick development time, cutting any cost and gap in expertise and time. Now, let's go over to Copilot. So we'll be using Copilot because, of course, you can use the visuals and click or create some code and create a report, but you can do the same thing using Copilot. So there's no real need to do those jobs. So Copilot is more of a productivity tool than a replacement. Now in the Copilot, you can see that I'm suggested some content for this report. So it went away and analyzed the entire data, raw data that's behind the scenes, and it can suggest some content based on that data. So it's suggesting me a disaster response analysis report. Well, let's create that report. And you can see that entire thing is really natural to interact with. And just in the split of a second, I have a new entire report. And this report is really not a simple report, right? You can see that it's more dynamic. It can be sliced and broken down by disaster numbers. You can see the calculations performed, and the entire thing is basically done in a beautiful way. And this entire process would take a lot more development time, weeks or even days of development time. So I was able to create this thing in a matter of a second. Now let's create the second one that was suggested. Let's click create. All right, you can see the second one, right? We have the average, the sum of sales amount by different levels, federal cost share amount and state cost share amount. So how much of the money was delegated to federal and state levels. And we can see the disasters amount broken down by agencies, right? And the cost share broken down for the agencies. And if you want to say, for example, see the disaster number 3,347, you can see that specifically for that disaster. So the slices were added with the logic in mind. And let's do the next one, right? So I'm showing you some basic suggested reports. You can actually create your reports with your own requirements using, again, natural language. No need for coding, no need for technical expertise, just some requirements, some business requirements, and ask the Copilot to bring it onto you. And we'll basically create a report. And you can actually change it if you want, right? You can tinker with this, but generally it understands the natural language. All right, you can see the obligation and requested amount broken down by the agencies and the cities and the state. For example, here we can see some reports for California, right? So you can see the city breakdown and the total amount that was spent. And let's create the last one for disaster impact analysis assessment. So that will be more of a impact evaluation for every disaster. And let's say I want to see the latest one by state, right? I want to see the impact evaluation, not by agency, not by disaster description, but by the state. Right now it's fine. For example, I can see how much money we spent on fire, on different disasters, but I want to see that by state, right? And it's really easy in Power BI with the Copilot. I can just ask it to create a page that's, let's say, similar to this page, right? Disaster impact evaluation. But with a state filter. Let's post it. And it will resemble this everything from this report and just change the state filter on top of it. So it understands what's the requirement. It's not a template, right? You can ask your own questions, as you can see. And it's really easy to interact with. It makes the whole process really easy for me as a developer and for any end user to understand the data. All right, so we can see that here, state or tribe filter, right? We can filter for California and see the same analysis, but for the California instead of disaster description. And this is actually pretty much it about the report, right? So you can see that I developed an end-to-end solution in a matter of minutes, right? In around 40 minutes, 45 minutes, an end-to-end solution using only Fabric. So I'm not really using any other tools outside the Fabric. Everything is streamlined. I'm using Copilot to understand the data, to interact with my data, and ask some basic questions. Now that my report is ready, I can save it, right? And let's give it a name. For example, mission assignment demo report. Let's save it. Great. Now, with this report, I can interact even further, right? I can ask some basic questions about the report as a business user. For example, create a bullet list of insights. So it will highlight everything that's